What up? What up? It is another Friday night. What that means is it's time for the Playcallers Sports Talk Show. We're gonna talk some sports and we're gonna have some fun. Hopefully, we're gonna interact, but it all depends on y'all because we're gonna always interact with each other. Feel me? It's your boy Cool McCain on my side. Think this way. Tell everybody who you are, sir.
Well, you weren't pointing at me, but I'm going to assume that you were. It's your boy Stephen Box. Other way, sir. Other way.
No, actually, on my screen it's this way.
Oh,
Yeah,
well, you're pointing. You're pointing to like my window over on the side to me. So yeah, JJ got it
and
right.
and below him is our guy, Coach Dante. What up?
Hey, what's good, man? I'm excited, man. My Lady Dallas Wings play tonight. WNBA kicking off, man. We got the Sixers and the Boston Celtics going at it. I'm ready to talk some ball, man. Let's do it, y'all.
I believe the Nuggets playing tonight too, if I remember correctly, against those Suns in Phoenix, possibly. Uh, and below me, so I'm assuming if I go down, everybody will see that. Today we're going by NBA fan. JJ, what it do?
Unlike y'all, I ain't got nothing to look forward to on my teams, but I'm happy to be here. I'll tell you that.
It's the overall encompassing, sir. See, what happens is this is what people fail to do, right? We're gonna take the NBA for example. Your team gets eliminated because it happens to us all, right? Plenty of years where I was like, all right, my team's out, so I'd like this team. This is a team I'm gonna root for just for the playoffs, right? So you gotta find you a team so that way you can continue to enjoy the ambiance of the playoffs.
Well, I'm an NBA fan, so I'm enjoying all of you guys. I'm looking forward to both games tonight, specifically you guys.
Oh, I'm specifically looking forward to us guys too, for sure. And just in case you may be new to the channel, just in case you might just fell into us and don't remember who we are, let me do a quick reminder for you. And you always get some live interactive sports talk with you guys here. So, gentlemen, a lot of interesting things have happened since we had the last Friday show. Of course, last week we had our annual draft special, which was very long but very fun. Right, we got a chance to see a lot of guys get picked, a lot of guys fall to certain teams, a lot of unexpected picks, and some that seem logical. So, I'll start with you, Steven, and we'll just circle around. Just tell me one team that you think had a really good draft and one player that you thought was a good fit where they were selected at.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think the team that really impressed me the most was Houston, right? Because and I might be stealing Coach Dante's up,
Of
and
course, you're still in his. You knew that.
I'm sorry, it didn't even occur to me until I started talking. But I like the fact that they went out and got both their offensive leader and their defensive leader. That's setting your organization up for success long term. So they may not have had as many draft picks as a lot of people, but I really like the moves that they made with that.
All right. And what was your player that you thought went to a place that was a good fit for them? Not necessarily a great, you know, could have been later in the first round, could have been second round, right? Was that one player? I'm assuming it's probably a first rounder, but that one player that you thought went in a perfect place for them.
Yeah, if I were to pick a player, and it's not necessarily where they went to so much a good fit, but I think that Will Levis got a good opportunity because going in the second round, he's not going to have quite the pressure on him that a lot of the first round quarterbacks are. He's going to get a chance to really sit. There's no pressure for him to come in and have to start from the beginning. And we talked about it. He's going to be a project guy. He's going to be a guy who needs that 2-3 years to really start to develop. So I think that ended up being a great fit for him.
All right, Coach Dante, I know yours was stolen, man, and that's nothing you could do about that. But maybe you can give us another one since someone did you like that.
Absolutely not. Mine wasn't stolen because I already have some another team up my sleeve. Even though my Texans did do a hell of a job, but I have another team up my sleeves. That's the Seattle Seahawks. I thought the Seattle Seahawks done a damn good job. They got the best corner in the draft in Devin Witherspoon. Um, like I say, a guy that can really cover is going to go out there and play day one. A guy that can also tackle. They got Jackson Smith for Jigba from Ohio State. He's going to play day one as well in Seattle. He's going to help out DK Metcalf. And also, they got two really good guys, man, that can really play. Derek Hall from Auburn, who's really good, who's an outside linebacker. He's going to really help as well. Zach Charlemagne, the running back from UCLA, he's not afraid to run. He can run between the tackles. Also catch up out of the little backfield a little bit, but catching is not his strength. Running, he's going to definitely him and Walker is going to be definitely a 1-2 tandem as well. So I really like what they did. Also, Cam Young. They also get Cam Young, the tackle out of Mississippi State. So I'm really impressed with the Seattle Seahawks did. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks. And my player that I thought that was a good fit was Brian Branch in Detroit. I don't know how the hell he fell that far in the second round from Alabama. The safety that can play nickel corner. Brian Branch, that's a huge pickup for the Detroit Lions. I was shocked when he went that far, when he fell that far in the second round.
Oh, cool deal. Well, it seemed like they had great answers from both of you guys, and they were. One was my pick was the Seattle Seahawks in the fact, but I'm going to go the obvious answer. I think when you saw what happened to them against Kansas City, I think Philadelphia had the best draft because they basically said,
I agree.
We're gonna lose Javon Hargrave, but we're gonna get back a Georgia boy. And I think it showed that they're committed to getting an effective pass rush, so that way they can battle the Burrows, the Rodgers, and Mahomes. So I think Philly had a great draft, even though Seattle was my pick because I like them trying to form the Legion of Boom again after Tariq Woolen had a good year, and then bring on my man right there. My player, and this is kind of a hot one for us, I think Anthony Richardson in Indianapolis is the best fit because when you have a guy that has the dynamic potential of him, it's always great to come to a team that believes in a hard-nosed running attack to allow that guy get a chance to get him to feel for the NFL. And if you have a dynamic running back, he'll have a chance to really use his skill sets. I'm very excited to see what Anthony Richardson's going to do in Indianapolis.
Fair enough. So a team that I thought that did really well in the first round or in the draft actually as a whole would be the Chargers. I think the first round they did a great job of going and grabbing a really quality receiver because when you have the history of injuries that they have, you could really refer to their whole receiving corps as street clothes at some point or another. Those guys are always injured. So to go and grab a receiver, obviously a position where it's needed, whether you got some aging vets that you're deciding, you know what, I'm probably not going to roll with them past the current contracts and it's time to start getting that next wave of players in, or just insurance because, you're going to have injuries a lot of the time. I think that was a very great pick for them. And then some of the other things they did in the draft as well. They didn't make a lot of moves. They just kind of stuck to their laurels, made picks to fill holes and potentially put themselves in a really good situation. So I think for me, that was the team that I saw that had a really great draft. Obviously, the team that you guys talked about, I completely agree with as well. But that was a team that I thought had a really great draft. And then also for a player, I'm going to go with Dalton Kincaid, the tight end from Utah, who fell to 20, in the mid, I think 25 or 26. He went to Buffalo. They have Knox, right? But obviously, Knox is not going to be there forever. And we really realized the league we're in there, it was a two tight end league. If you don't have two quality tight ends, you're going to be in trouble. So I think being able to pick him up where they did and have him have someone that he can sit there and learn from on his team and help him develop and become better and watch. And hopefully he won't be a Brett Favre or Aaron Rodgers type mentor, but actually, work with him, help him develop. I think that was a good place for him to go. I think it's a good pick area for him to go. I think everything about that was perfect for him. and it's only giving him an opportunity to be successful. Hopefully, he was going to grab that brass wing and do his thing. But that was my guy. All right, so gentlemen, with that one discussed, was there anyone that, well, the answer to this could be multiple people, right? But was there anyone that shocked you where they were picked, any player or any team that's just you felt like they really did not do the best job that they could, with their draft?
I mean, for me, like I actually disagree with the other opinions here. I don't think Seattle had a great draft. I felt like they got some really good players, but I don't feel like those positions were really what they needed. I think what you're going to find is those players will make them a little bit better. And it might be a situation where we might look back if those players play great and say, oh, they had a great draft. But there's always going to be those question marks when we start to notice some of the weaknesses they still have. And I don't feel like they did a good enough job of addressing the real weaknesses that they had on that team. Primarily, they still don't really have anybody who's going to get after the quarterback. That was really to me like instead of spending the money on a corner, you should or the pick on the corner, you really should have got an edge rusher with that first pick. You also still have question marks on your offensive line. And with what the 49ers have on their defensive line, that is not a position you can afford to neglect against the team that you're battling with for the NFC West title. So to me, Seattle, although they drafted great players, did not have a good draft because I don't think they were smart selections for what they.
Okay. Coach Dante?
I feel like the Jets kind of reached on Will McDonald. I feel like they kind of reached on him. They wanted the offensive lineman. They wanted that offensive lineman, Paris Johnson. The Arizona Cardinals ended up taking him because of the trade down with the Houston Texans. So I thought they kind of panicked a little bit once Paris Johnson went off the board and went on to pick Will McDonald. Someone that was projected to go in the early second round, probably early no earlier than the second round, probably had an opportunity to get past that, probably had an opportunity to get to that late first round. But I thought that was a little bit of a reach because Paris Johnson ended up going off the board. They definitely wanted an offensive lineman. And then they drafted Tremaine Johnson last year on the defensive line. So I thought that was kind of a head scratcher right there. And another one that I thought, now I think this guy's going to be all generational, Bijan Robinson, but I didn't think they needed a running back. I didn't really think the Atlanta Falcons kind of needed a running back. They did have Tyler Algieri last year who did run from over 1,000 yards. I didn't think that was a need right there. So those are the two questionable things I will take out of the draft. That was kind of a questionable picks. And you can also go Detroit with Jameer Gibbs, but even though they did even up giving at that point in time, they end up trading Swift to the Eagles, but at that point in time, that was kind of questionable.
All right, JJ, what about you, sir?
I actually was shocked that Joey Porter Jr. went to my rival. I would thought he went a little bit sooner, but I am shocked, not in a good way for me, but it's a bad way for me, but a good way for them because he's gonna fit right in. And I think they have a definite need at corner. If you think about it, ever since Rod Woodson, they have not had a dynamic cornerback. And I think this guy, with his father, I think his father is still coaching on the team. It's going to fit right in. And I was shocked that he actually landed with them. I was thinking he was going to go to another team that would have been a cornerback needy team.
All right. Was there any team that you thought could have had a better draft, we'll say?
Not necessarily. I was going to pick my squad, but at the same time, we accomplished what we wanted to accomplish this year prior to coming to the draft, and now these guys are just coming in for the future. But nothing really stood out for me as surprises. Like super surprised that they didn't have a good draft. I think the teams from the drafts up there, I think everybody had a pretty decent draft.
So I'm going to go with a couple of players. Okay. A lot of people are not going to agree with my first one, and I don't care. 5'10", 204-pound Bryce Young going to a team that does not have an offensive line. Um, I don't think that's a good pick for him or for the Panthers because you're not putting him in this situation where he's going to be successful. I know a lot of people want to compare him to like Drew Brees. They want to talk about, height doesn't matter. And I'll even give you height doesn't matter. 204 pounds matters. Can he even stay at 204 pounds? What is a guy that's 5'10", 204 pounds going to be able to take throughout an NFL season as far as hits go? He's a quarterback. You're going to get hit. You're going to get hit a lot, especially behind the line that does need to improve. They did some things in the draft later on, and obviously they drafted some people to try to help, and then also they signed some undrafted free agents, and they'll be guys that get cut from other camps and different things that they'll be able to try to bring in maybe and help out. But it doesn't look like a good pick, and I'm even going to go as far as to say the whole situation. So not even just the pick, the fact that you traded up to number one when you had so many other glaring holes, and I thought you had guys that would have fit what I've seen from Frank Wright as a play caller, as a head coach previously, what he likes to do coming out next year. I thought there was a little bit of a reach on that end as well. So I'm definitely going to go with Bryson, and not because of talent. So I want to make that clear. So anybody that watches it say, "Oh, he doesn't think he should be number pick," no, but he's not in a good situation. To me, if you were going to bring in a guy like Bryce Young, I think the Texans would have been a better place for him because the Texans are going to build from the trenches out because of their coach. They're going to look at the offensive line, defensive line. They're going to build. Then they're going to put the quarterback in a good situation. Now, maybe talent-wise, you want to get him some other guys in to help out at the wide receiver position, different things. But those are things that can be addressed, like I said, through still guys that maybe at their free agency, guys who get cut from other people's rosters who could be upgrades. But I think this situation for Bryce Young, because of durability concerns for me, I think that that's not the best pick or the best place for him to be. Um, I'm also gonna go, and I don't think they had a good draft either. So this will be double. Green Bay Packers. Lucas Van Ness at 13, too high in my opinion. Should he be drafted? Absolutely. Is he a defensive end that's going to be productive? I think so. Is he a guy that's going to be worthy of the 13th pick or anywhere in probably the top 20? I'm going to say no. You need help at the wide receiver position desperately. Let me say that again. Green Bay Packers. You need help at the wide receiver position desperately. And to not address that in the early part of this draft when you had the better players at that position available, that shows me that you're not committed to giving Jordan Love weapons to help him be successful, since he's supposedly your guy because you signed him to a 1-year extension. So to me, Green Bay, not a good draft overall. Definitely not a good first round pick, but I do appreciate you and the Jets and some of these other teams reaching for these defensive ends and linebackers, because had you not, things might have gone differently for us. So great job. But for you as an organization, some of you guys should have did better. Just a couple of my thoughts there. And I'll just go around. We'll start with you this time, JJ, give you a chance to jump in on this one as well first. As far as the draft goes, we talked about some guys you like, some guys you didn't like. Any other thoughts you had on a draft, the overall draft, or anything regarding the draft that you wanted to discuss before we hop over to the NBA and get into some of this NBA playoff talk?
To be very honest, no, I'd like to hear from you guys. I pretty much said what I wanted to say.
All right, Coach Dante, any other thoughts you have on the NFL? I'm about to say NFL draft?
All I gotta say is Howard Roseman should be thrown in jail for what went on in the draft. I don't know how the hell you come away with Jalen Carter and how the hell the teams let him go that far down. The expression from Michael Parsons' face showed you all what you needed to know, that he shouldn't have been drafted that far down. But I understand his issues off of the field. Him not being able to finish, his pro day allowed him to drop down, and the Eagles done a great job. And then to come back at 30, and Nolan Smith was listed as a top 10 prospect. They get him at 30, then get an upside corner in Kelly Ringo. Then Amoro Jamo in the 7th round. That's a steal. Howie Roseman should be thrown in jail for stealing, because that's what he definitely did. And like I say, the Eagles are by far, to me, the winners of the whole draft for what they did. So at the end of the day, the Eagles definitely, to me, killed it.
I just want to say Jumbo's young because he went to college at like 16.
Yes, that
So
dude is
he's young. So he's still got a
really
lot of
good.
time to play and a lot of time to
Yep,
develop. So I was
yep,
excited to that we were able to
yep,
grab him as well.
yep.
Just want to throw that in there. All right, co-host, what you got?
For me, the thing that we always see this time of year is everybody's like handing out their draft grades. And me, even we're doing it, saying like, oh, who had a good draft, who didn't, or whatever. But I think it's a good time just to remind everybody out there, we don't know how any of these guys are going to work out, right? We don't know if any of these picks are going to be good. We don't know how the fits are going to go, how these guys are going to get used, if people are going to have injury problems. We don't know anything. We really won't know if this is a good draft for 2-3 years for a lot of these guys. So, just sit back, man, enjoy it. That's the biggest thing. Like, it's always fun when we get to see some of these guys, especially the guys that get drafted in like the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th rounds, and they end up coming out of nowhere, or they end up playing really well. So, that's all I'm gonna say, man. Just enjoy it, and be excited about what your team's potential is right now.
So for time purposes, we'll discuss the undrafted free agent signings next week. But just wanted to touch on that by saying, for me, the draft is very important, definitely. But a lot of times we have a couple of these undrafted free agency guys. They get in camp, they work hard, they show what they can do, and they end up being guys that make rosters and are guys that actually contribute to the team. So not just on the practice squad, but actually make the active roster, get snaps, and become a part of the team. So, for whoever those guys are this year, uh, early congratulations. We're going to see it develop. It's something we'll definitely follow throughout, training camps. Once we start to get in there, start getting information about the different teams, just those are the guys to follow, because those are the guys that I think make people that are casual fans watch kind of fall in love a little bit more with the NFL, because you see guys that you didn't even see get drafted, and you see them make a team, and all of a sudden they're an integral part in some way, shape, or form, even if that's just special teams. So excited to see where some of those guys go this year. I think we've got a couple that have a chance. I also live in Charlotte, hear a lot about the Panthers, and I think they have a couple that have a chance as well, because the Panthers are in need of a talent infusion, to say it nicely. So, just excited to see where that goes, and we'll definitely be touching on that. But again, got to leave some time for um, the topic of the week, right? And that's going to be the NBA playoffs. So we've got a lot of series going on. We've got a lot of series that ended. So for time purposes, what we'll do is we'll talk about the series that's happening now, your thoughts on it, and then any thoughts you want to recap on the previous series that these teams were included in. So we'll start out west, because I'm a Nuggets fan, with the Denver Nuggets against the Phoenix Suns. So, Coach Dante, we're gonna rock with you first on this one. What's your thoughts on um, this Denver Phoenix Suns? And if you want to touch on the previous series, you can. Uh, what's your thoughts?
Well, first of all, the Phoenix Suns, I didn't pick them to go to the NBA Finals any goddamn way. Cool McKay, you heard that from me multiple times on the other show over there. You heard me from that multiple times. I didn't trust the Phoenix Suns. Again, the lack of a bench depth is really showing. I mean, my goodness, that bench is disgraceful over there. If you have Kevin Durant, Devin Booker playing a combined 90 minutes, and you have nobody off you, Damian Lee, someone that's not even in the rotation, but come off the bench and give you 26 minutes and no damn points. Cameron Payne falls up out of the damn rotation all of a sudden, who was coming in at the start of the year, giving you minutes. Now you decide to sit him out of rotation and put Landry Shamet he can only give you 11 minutes and only 2 points. So Kevin Durant and Devin Booker can't sit on a bench even 3 minutes. They can't even get any rest because the bench depth is so goddamn bad. And plus, we already know Chris Paul. We don't know what his groin or hamstring goes out at times, but it definitely did went out the last game when they had the momentum. When they actually had some momentum going, it picked the wrong time to go out. But you just got to give the Denver Nuggets credit. They are by far the better team in this series. It's a reason why I picked the Denver Nuggets to go to the NBA Finals. They got actually people that can come off the bench and play. Bruce Brown, one of my favorite players in the league, improved his shooting. Got Grant comes in, gives you good defense. Gives you good defense. You got Christian Braun, the rookie, even playing some good basketball. He may be not good at scoring, but he's very good at playing defense and being physical and not afraid to get up in your face. Jokic playing like the MVP we do know. Even though Joel Embiid did get it, but he's still playing the same way. He's still being consistent. And you just got to get a little, if you can get a little more out of Michael Porter Jr., this team will be definitely a dangerous team. I'm not mad at Jamal Murray for playing poorly as he played. I didn't think he even played poorly, to be honest. I just thought he shot horrible from the field in game two. I thought he did everything the right way in that game too. The only thing he did, he just shot poorly. It's the differences between playing bad and shooting poorly. He had a poor shooting game. Other than that, he did everything right. So that's my thoughts on that Denver Nuggets and the Phoenix Suns series. Phoenix just not a good look for Phoenix. They traded away, they get Kevin Durant, but then again, they lost the important pieces that they have, Cam Johnson and Mikal Bridges. It's almost like they forgot who got them to the finals, who helped them go to the finals. So now they're paying for it with their lack of bench depth.
JJ, what you got?
Well, see, I kind of disagree a little bit with Coach, but I think this is the difference between a team that's been together for the last 3 or 4 years and know each other than a team that just got together. I think we kind of forget that Kevin's only been around and played 16 games. Now, it takes teams at least a year for people to kind of be cohesive together, and I don't think it's realistic to expect them to do anything against a team like Denver, who Jamal Murray and Nikola Jokic had that two-man game going. I think Phoenix will be much better next year. This year, they have the talent. They just don't have the cohesiveness. And if you watch them, especially, they're good. But once you get to end game and crunch situations, they just run ISO between Booker and KD and try to figure out what's going on. And there's a reason why Kevin Durant's turnovers are higher. He just doesn't know them, to the point their new owner came in, made a huge splash and brought him in. But as far as I don't think too many teams are playing better than Denver right now. And I think I 100% agree with Jamal Murray. He had some good looks. They just weren't going in. That's all it was. It wasn't as if he was forcing it. He was shooting his normal shots. They just wasn't going in. But like Coach Malone literally said it, when it came time to make that shot, Murray made that shot down the stretch to pretty much seal game 2. And I think, to me, in the West, I think there's only one team that is very similar to playing at their best right now, which is a team we'll talk about later, in the LA Lakers. But I think Denver has a...
All right. I think we lost JJ for a minute here. So, Steven, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I mean, we talked a little bit before the series started offline, and I just don't think that Phoenix is as good as everybody made them out to be. Since day one, I just haven't believed in them. As Coach pointed out, they gave up a lot of that depth that actually made them good to get Kevin Durant. And especially now with Chris Paul out, they're going to have to depend on Durant and Booker to put up at least 70, 75 points just between the two of them to even have a chance to win any of these games in this series. So, for me, when I look at this, I just see in Denver a complete team. You can have Murray go off and have a horrible night, and Jokic can easily pick up the slack and carry the team. If Jokic wants to get a little extra rest and Murray's having a great night, they can afford to have him do that. The only issue I really see for Denver is they do have a lack of depth when it comes to their bigs. So if at any point if they lose Jokic or he's out for an extended period of time, that could hurt them. But I don't think it's going to hurt them against Phoenix. It might be an issue later on in the playoffs. But as far as this series, I just don't see Phoenix winning this. I think they'll probably get a hot night at least once and pull off at least one victory, so it won't be a sweep. But I don't see this series going more than 6 games, and more than likely probably 5.
All right, so
And for me, I think it's just basically Denver is the better team. I think Kevin Durant is the best player on the court, but Denver is the best team. You guys both said the main point is depth. We do have a big that you're familiar with. For some reason, I think he's gotten in the doghouse, so he hasn't been playing lately. Um, but he's there. He's healthy. I mean, I've even seen some guys get in the game. We even saw the ghost of DeAndre Jordan make a couple appearances. I don't know why he's playing instead of the other guy, but that's another discussion. But I will say that I think that with Denver, the big thing is focus, staying focused, trying to go ahead and get this win tonight, get this thing to 3-0. A lot of people overlooked the fact that the first 2 games were in Denver. So anything other than Denver winning the first 2 games would have been tragic for their ability to win the series. Because if you think about it, you have to hold home court. You have to do that, right? And Denver has done that through the first 2 games. So tonight's the night to see, can they go up 3-0 and put Phoenix on their heels, or can Phoenix bounce back at home and get this game and maybe game 4, go back to game 5 tied up, or are we going to see them going back? Worst case, not going back. Best case for me. Worst case, going back with a chance to close out the series. So that's to me the biggest thing. I think Phoenix plays very little defense, as well as not having depth. And those 2 things may be interconnected. But even before Durant got there, they were not a team that was very impressive. You can look at numbers and statisticals, and you can look like they're playing well. But if you take your eyes, open them, and watch the team on the court, you can see that there was not a lot of defense being played. They were out shooting and outscoring teams. Now you have a team that can score with you. They can go very deep, as we talked about. Phoenix is not prepared for that. So for all of you people that were like, oh, Phoenix is going to the finals, maybe JJ is right. Maybe next year they're better. They probably only have the same team next year. But for this year, I don't think they're going any further in the series. I've said that the whole time. I've said from the beginning, Denver in 6. If it's 5, it's even better. But I'm thinking Denver in 6. That's been my prediction, and I'm sticking to it.
The way right now, the way the series going, it don't look like it may be going back to Denver. I mean, now you got Chris Paul is down. Now you got someone that has to step up coming off the bench, and that weakens your bench even more because he's not playing TJ Warren at all. He's not playing many guys. And when everybody was asking him, hey, he got to go to his bench more, then game 2, he tried. They weren't producing. So other than that, the way the series looked, doesn't look like it's going to make it even back to Denver. I wouldn't be surprised if Denver win these next 2 games in Phoenix. But of course, everybody love to play that pride game. The game number 4, and maybe they have some pride and then lose it in 5 back in Denver. So other than that, the way they look and the way their depth looking at this moment, don't even look like they're going to make it even back to Denver. And again, you can't tell me if that Clippers team was if they just had Kawhi Leonard alone, that series would have went deep. That series would have went further. Would have went further along if they still had Kawhi Leonard. And they were struggling. They were struggling really, really bad against a Russell Westbrook team without Kawhi Leonard. So you seen that from far away. But I already said the Suns weren't making it in the NBA Finals. I already had Denver as my prediction to go to the NBA Finals.
Fair enough. And then we'll hop over to the other series out west. We've got the Golden State Warriors and Steven's LA Lakers. And since he is the resident Lakers guy, talk to us, Steven. What we got going on in the series?
Yeah, I mean, obviously this is a more evenly matched series than our last one, right? I felt like we were just a better team than Memphis. But, Golden State obviously matches up Now, what's interesting is it's the contrast of styles. Golden State is high speed, shooting lots of 3-pointers. They try to bury you by just basically blitzing you. LA really wants to play more defense. They want to grind you down. They want to beat you up. They want to get to the free throw line. Game one, Anthony Davis completely locked in, shut the entire lane down. Vanderbilt played fantastic defense on Curry. Every time he was out of the game, Curry was going off. But he was playing fantastic defense on him. The team was playing great team defense. Everybody was locked in. And that's why they won game one, right? The other big thing was they were getting into the paint and they were getting free throws and they were getting Golden State into foul trouble. Game two, the Lakers do what the Lakers do. They didn't show up. They decided they had already accomplished their goal of winning one on the road. That was all they really cared about. They were not locked in defensively. There were a couple things I think threw them off in game two. Number one was Golden State at the end of game one started putting the ball in Steph's hands, letting him come down. So that kind of put a little extra pressure on the defense. But I think the big thing was the Lakers' defensive strategy for this series was we're going to prevent Steph and Clay from going off and destroying us, and we're going to allow other guys to shoot the ball. Well, that worked great when you had Kevon Looney in the lineup. It did not work so well when you had JaMychal Green in the lineup. So I think the fact that they had to switch up what they were doing defensively, the fact they weren't locked in on it, and then you combine that with one of those crazy nights where Steph and Clay are basically hitting 3-pointers without even looking at the basket, I'm not really surprised that we ended up with a blowout. So I still think the Lakers are going to win the series. I think we're going to get enough out of Anthony Davis because we only really need 4 games out of Anthony Davis, right? Of him playing at that level. And if he's playing at that level, I don't think that Golden State is going to be able to win the series. But, in terms of the way it's going to play out, that's what's going to be interesting. Because I think we could see a situation in which games 3 and 4 actually do get split. And then that would force LA to have to go back and win another game in San Francisco before finishing it up in 6, which is my prediction is Lakers in 6.
All right, Coach Dante, what are your thoughts?
Well, my prediction, I had the actual Golden State Warriors winning this series in 7 games. Go last night. You got to give the Lakers credit for coming out in game 1. Anthony Davis being that dog, that's what he was definitely brought in for, as to help be the second option to LeBron James. Now you can argue you can make him the first option. Now that LeBron James ain't got a lot of miles going on, and he's going to defer a lot of times. And guess what? Anthony Davis was dominant. He was dominant in game number 1. But the difference was, and also D'Angelo Russell had a solid game. D'Angelo Russell had a solid game in game number 1 as well. 19 points out of him and Schroeder. When you're getting that type of production, that's going to be hard to beat the Los Angeles Lakers. But in game 2, Lakers forgot they had an 8 o'clock game in game 2. I saw a lot of screens that Anthony Davis felt to step up late. When you're going up against Curry, them, and Klay Thompson, once you see a screen, you got to make a decision. What if you want to help? What if you got to let the defender know? We got to let your defender know that's guarding the ball. Hey, I'm going to help. You got to let him know if you're going to help or not. And in a lot of those scenarios, Anthony Davis was way too late on stepping up on Klay and Steph Curry. I thought it was a lot of confusion on the defensive side of the ball between him and the guy that was guarding the ball. I thought LeBron James lacked of defense last night as well because he did a lot of ball watching. But also, I think the lineup gave him a lot of problems. Without Kevon Looney, I thought JaMychal Green being able to sit in the corner and nobody putting a hand in his face gave him a lot of comfortable rhythm shooting on that one just because nobody wanted to challenge a shot. And Draymond Green being aggressive, shooting a floater, being a playmaker, I thought that helped. But also, Draymond Green defensive, being physical on Anthony Davis all night long, kind of taking Anthony Davis up out of the ball game. That was huge. And Draymond Green liked the way he's taking the challenge. He said, for us to win, I gotta better take the challenge and get physical with Anthony Davis, because if this guy goes off, we're not winning the series. That happened in the bubble. He was Anthony Davis in the bubble, and it happened in game 1. So for the Lakers to win this series, Anthony Davis is gonna have to be the guy. again like he was in the bubble. He won't get the same excuses LeBron will get. He's got to be the guy. If he doesn't be the guy, it's a lot of crap going to come up on him instead of LeBron James. If he can't be the guy. So, like I say again, this series is going to be long, but I got Golden State in 7. I just cannot get over the hump that Golden State, you can rule them out when you think they're down. Because I've seen it too many times. Klay Thompson has big games when you need him to have big games. Curry has big games when you need him to have big games. They know that's the team I know that plays through a lot of adversity and that's been through it all through those 4 championship runs. So it's really hard for me to go against them. The Lakers could win this series, but they need some consistency out of Anthony Davis. They need him to be that dog for them to win this series. He's going to have an all-world series if they're going to win.
Yeah, I'm actually going to agree with your prediction, Coach Dante. I've got Golden State in 6. I don't feel that Davis is going to step up enough in order for them to win 4 games in this series. He could prove me wrong, but I just don't think he's going to be able to do it that many times. Also, I noticed in this series that they have a lot of trouble, as we were discussing earlier, with keeping Steph under control. I don't understand why they're not using Schroeder on Steph Curry more. Russell can't guard Steph Curry, but I think the speed he has, I think that would be a good defensive matchup or a good adjustment to make by putting Schroeder on Curry when he's in the game, because he'll run around those screens with him. He'll stick with him the whole time. He'll make things at least more difficult. I think, like you said, LA has LeBron, definitely. You got guys like Rui that have stepped up, Austin Reeves, but Austin Reeves is struggling defensively against Klay Thompson. Like there's no way around that. That does not look like an even matchup whatsoever. So I think the thing is, when you look at the matchups, I feel like Golden State has a good opportunity here. I wouldn't be surprised if I'm wrong and LA pulls it out. I think this is a lot closer of a series than most people think. But I just feel like Steph is a microwave. You can hold this guy like 1 of 7 through the first 3 quarters, and then he'll come out and score 25 points in the fourth quarter. That's just the kind of player he is. And when you have that, if you don't have guys on your team that can go down and match him bucket for bucket, because if you're going down and hitting 2s, and he's going down and hitting 3s, even if you have a little bit of a lead, that's going to evaporate. So I just feel like that what he brings, we know Clay's another one of those guys. He's not going to show up every game, but when he does, it's pretty good. I think for me, when I look at this series, Michael Porter Jr., Devin Booker, Klay Thompson, and Anthony Davis are the 4 guys in the West that show up sometimes and give their teams a great boost, but they're not consistent enough. So if either of those 4 guys can become more consistent for their team, I think that's the team who's going to win, because all of the things considered, most of these guys are in good situations. They have good benches, except for Phoenix. So they're in a little bit of a struggle, even if Booker does show up, but they're in a much better situation if he does show up. So I just think that's me. For me, that's what's happening in the Western Conference as a whole, and especially with that series. But it's not a big gap. The LA and San Francisco, I think, is a very hotly matched and hotly debated series. I think those teams are very close. So it's just a matter if they can find some way to contain Steph Curry, because he's the guy that will go off any night. He'll go out for 40, 50 points and win the game by himself if he needs to, if he gets a little ticked off. So that's just my thoughts on, the West. But like I said, I could be completely wrong on both series, but I wouldn't be surprised, especially if LA were to find a way to win. I just hope that whoever wins is just, Denver's just waiting on them. That's my only hope.
I'll just add to that real quick. You mentioned putting Schroeder on him, and I think that it's catch-22 for the Lakers, right? I think they almost need to plan to kind of have 2 ways to guard him, because if you're putting Vanderbilt on him and he's bringing the ball down court, Vanderbilt can't hang with him coming down the court. It puts him in a disadvantage. Schroeder is a better defender for that. But if you get into a half-court set and you've got Schroeder trying to stick with him, he's not able to. Like, you might be able to physically stick with him speed wise, but he can't guard him. Then you need Vanderbilt size on him. So if the Lakers can somehow figure out a way to get Schroeder on him when he's bringing the ball down and then switch in the half court to Vanderbilt, that's going to give them the best chance. Now, if are they going to be able to do that without leaving somebody else wide open is going to be the question mark. The other big thing I think LA has to do in this series is they have to drive to the hole like they did game one. You do not get into a shootout contest with the Golden State Warriors. That's stupid.
All right, we'll move on to the Eastern Conference, and we'll start with Boston and the Philadelphia 76ers. Coach Dante, we'll start with you. What are your thoughts on that series?
My thoughts on that series, James Harden turned into the old James Harden of Houston in game one. A lot of it with him was ISO basketball. That tells you because they had 17 assists throughout the whole game. So that basically tells you they played ISO ball pretty much throughout the whole game. And D'Anthony Melton also had a great game in that game, shooting threes coming off the bench, especially early on. Tyrese Maxey was horrible from the 3-point line, 2 for 9, but he was efficient from the field, overall. But Tobias Harris is a wild card for me. He's someone that kind of gets overlooked because again, he's playing with Joel Embiid, James Harden, and Maxey. That's 3 people that needs the basketball. They gave him this big contract, but you got to realize Tobias Harris needs the ball in his hands to be effective. And he's been showing up a lot lately. He had 18 in that game. But in game 2, you saw a whole different Boston. You saw Boston that came out there, played very solid defense. Jason Tatum only had 7 points in the game. But also, this take me back to game 1. I'm going to say Jason Tatum still better than Jaylen Brown, but I think Jaylen Brown has more dog in him. I think he has more dog in him. I think he's has more willingness to take that last shot and be a dog down the stretch. I will definitely say that because how the hell he doesn't get a touch in the fourth quarter in game 1 when you're 8 for 10, 23 points and 3 for 4 from 3. How the hell he doesn't get a touch in the fourth quarter? I don't understand that. The turnover by Malcolm Brogdon, you got to turn it over at your own end, not at the Sixers end of the play where Tyrese Maxey just caught an interception and ran it back for basically a rim dunking touchdown. But other than that, a lot of opportunities went past away in game 1 for the Boston Celtics, and they definitely should have won that game. And the Celtics played terrible defense. You let James Harden ISO the whole game with them having only 17 assists and your defense just looking like Boston defense, like not Boston defense. That's not Boston defense right there. But in game 2, everybody was just on fire. Malcolm Brogdon was on fire. You had Jaylen Brown was on fire. You had everybody had a collective team effort in game 2 for Boston, and you saw some great defense for Boston as well. And they was able to get turnovers, run up the court, and run the Sixers up out of the gym. And I still got the Boston Celtics winning this series in 7 games. I think Boston Celtics at the end of the day, I think they're a better team. I think they're better defensively. They're a better defensive team. But if they want to win, man, Jason Tatum got to step up, man. You can't call yourself an elite player if you don't step up down the stretch when your team needs you the most. And I think that's what it comes down to. So that's why I say I think Tatum game overall is better than Brown, but I think Brown has more dog in him and more of a willingness to take the shot down the stretch.
All right, Steve, what we got?
Yeah, I mean, when I look at Boston, what I see is a team that is the classic story of they think they can just turn it on and off, right? We have not seen them play the kind of defense that they played in game 2 since early in the Atlanta series. They're just very inconsistent. They're capable of playing really, really solid defense, but they just don't do it most of the time. What's interesting to me is I feel like in game 1, there might have been a little bit of a letdown for Boston, right? It's, oh, we don't have to worry about Embiid, right? And so they kind of maybe went into the game not really as focused as what they should have been. And, it seems as that the 76ers maybe took a little motivation, right? Oh, no one's giving us a chance. Everybody's counting us out, right? And so they go in there game 1, they're motivated. Well, game 2 comes And now it's the opposite, right? Philadelphia gets their MVP back. They're like, we won game one without him. Now we get our MVP. We're good. But Boston was like, hey, we're not going down 0-2 at home. That's that's not happening, right? So they came out locked in on defense and humiliated the 76ers. So game three is going to be an interesting one, right? This is, where we're going to really find out what this series is going to be about. Obviously, we're only, in the first quarter of that game tonight, so it's hard to really judge anything right now. But if I'm looking what I think happens here long term, if Boston can lock in, which I think they can, but it's a question of will they lock in defensively, I do not see the 76ers be able to beat them. I think their defense is too good, and they're going to be able to, maybe Embiid still gets his points, but they're going to be able to limit those other guys to the point that the 76ers are not going to be able to score enough points to win this series.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Boston in the 6. I think Reed had a very good game in the first game. I think these two series were parallel. This is something I was going to discuss with the Lakers series, but it's parallel, so I can just discuss it here. Both teams lost game one at home. Game two is a must win at that point. Those two teams came out ready to punch those other two teams in the mouth rapidly and multiple times if needed because they know they needed to win the games. That's what we saw. Now, the question is, which version of the home teams are we going to get now that they're both going to be on the road in game three? That's going to be pivotal for them both because it's not about going down 1-2. Either one, honestly, they'd be fine with that happening. But the thing is, which version of yourself can you be on a consistent basis? I think Boston can be closer to what they are in game two. They're younger, they're athletic, they're hungry for the most part. I think Tatum is a little bit of a fat cat mentally, but I think when the time comes, he does, step up his level of play, just not consistently enough, to Coach Dante's point. But at the end of the day, Boston is the better team. I hate to say that. So I think that they should get a win. I don't know if we're going to have Joel Embiid back at 100% in this series. I feel like he shouldn't have really even been out there in game two. I understand why he's out there because they don't feel like they can win a championship without him. And I'm not wishing this on him because I'm not that type of guy. If he gets hurt again or re-aggravates the injury or further worsens the injury, he's going to be out anyway. So I would try to play as many games as I can without him, or if he does play, do something crazy that the coaches don't seem to do anymore. Actually minimize his minutes. So we'll see how that all ends up playing out, but definitely I'm going with Boston as well. And then we've got the underdog series to talk about here, and that's the New York Knicks versus the Miami Heat. All right, so Steven, we'll start with you on this one. What do we have?
Yeah, this one's an interesting one, right? Because this is a true contrast of styles, right? You've got the Knicks who are really running the entire offense through Jalen Brunson. And on the other side, you got Miami, who's really more of a complete team. They're going to get a lot more guys involved. And, it kind of comes down to, I think, two big question marks right now. Number one is, how long is Jimmy Butler going to be out? And how healthy is he going to be when he comes back, right? That's the first question that we're going to have to get answered. Because although Miami is a good team, I think there's going to be games in this series. They're going to need Jimmy Butler to go out there and do what he does, to be Jimmy Buckets, in order to actually win the series. On the other side, the Knicks, they just need to be consistent. And, they have had a history of being a team that when it really starts to matter, they fall apart. So, I know that they won the first series and everybody's kind of feeling good about them, but that question is going to start getting asked more and more, right? Especially if they lose game three. That question is going to start getting asked. Are they choking? Is this the same old Knicks? And then the question is going to be, how are they actually going to respond to that? So this is a weird series. It's hard to pick a winner in this one because you have such a contrast of styles. I'm going to say that if Miami gets Jimmy Butler back and he's healthy, I think he puts them over the top in this series. But if he doesn't come back or he's not really super healthy when he comes back, I actually think the Knicks will win the series.
Coach Dante.
Definitely agree. I got if Jimmy Butler is healthy, I got the Heat winning the series in 7 games. I just think last night, game one, it showed you Jimmy Butler, 25 points, 11 rebounds. I thought Miami do a great job of making adjustments, especially in that second half. Yes, Jalen Brunson had 25 points, but in game one, he worked for every point he got in game one. And that's what the Heat make you do. I mean, they probably don't have a great roster on paper in the playoffs, but when you have a coach like Eric Spoelstra who can outcoach anybody, and a guy like Pat Riley who breathes and sleeps and eats toughness on his team, and Kyle Lowry, yes, he's still in money, but he's still being effective. Him having the game one that he had, especially in the second and the set in that round against the Milwaukee Bucks, played phenomenal in that round. So other than that, you got guys like Caleb Martin can come off the bench and score you 19 points in a game. That's something. That Jimmy Butler can count on right there. And again, yes, it's Jimmy Butler is the driving force, but what made them so tough to guard in the Milwaukee series is if you're going to double Jimmy Butler, and which is they didn't at all, and a lot of people thought that was a mistake. But if the other guys shoot 50% from three, from the how you supposed to guard them, you can't double them, because if you do double them, other guys are making jump shots. Other guys are making jump shots, so it makes it hard. So you got to try to make them work. You got to try to contain them. That's what went wrong in that Milwaukee Bucks series. You can't run a double team at somebody and the other guys shooting 50% from the 3-point line. That just cannot happen. So when it comes in this series, hey, Duncan Robinson being able to make shots in game one. You had Gabe Vincent got off to a great start. But in game two, I thought when the Knicks won the game, it was the offensive rebounding. When Hartenstein was in the game, offensive rebounding really killed, the Miami Heat. And I thought Josh Hart broke their back a couple of times with those 2 corner threes in a row. But I thought offensive rebounding definitely made a difference in that game for the New York Knicks for them to win game one. But I think Miami Heat played well. If you said they had Jimmy Butler, they win that game too, because they lost by 6 points. But the only thing I saw in that game that the New York Knicks dominated on the glass.
I'm gonna actually go with the Knicks. I think that when they're fully healthy, that they have a great opportunity to go in here and win this series. I think it's gonna go 7. But I think the Knicks are going to be able to slide a pullout in. Now, the problem is, if we're being 100% honest, I would love to see Miami and Philadelphia in the Eastern Conference Finals. Story writes itself. I do think Miami has a better opportunity to get there from what I'm seeing as of now than Philadelphia, because, like I said, a lot of questions about Joel Embiid. And the one thing about James Harden is great performance in game one. We saw he can't continue to play that way. Number one, because he's an iso ball player. You have to put the ball in his hands and just let him go to work. And everybody else has to figure out a way to get their points and get their looks. He'll pass the ball at times, but for him to get in the zone like he did in game one, he's got to be that guy. He's got to be the ISO James Harden from Houston. He's got to turn into that player. And I don't think he has that in him. And this is not a negative against James Harden, but I don't think he has it in him 3 more times in the series, which is what they would need to have an opportunity to win. But while we are talking Eastern Conference, and while we are talking about Miami ending the Milwaukee series, big news came out this week. Mike Budenholzer has been fired in Milwaukee. So I'm just going to go ahead and throw my thoughts out there, and then I'll let you guys rock with it. For me, it's not a surprise from the standpoint of I felt for 2 years he was on eggshells, and I wouldn't have been surprised, sadly enough, and I say this because this is how work is everywhere, the microcosm of. You just won a championship 2 years ago, and now you're fired because your team lost in the first round without Giannis. I think the problem is what Coach Dante was just saying in his discussion. You got out-coached as well. You're constantly getting out-coached. There has to be a point in time, Budenholzer, where, and he'll get another opportunity, but hopefully when he gets this opportunity, he realizes I've got to do a better job of adapting to what's happening. I've got to change things. Don't bring back of 45% Giannis. Don't bring back a 35% Joel Embiid. They're not going to help their teams because when your star player is there, everybody else turns into a deferrer to that star player. That's what happened with Milwaukee. That's what happened with Philadelphia so far. So we'll see how it plays out for Philadelphia, but I'm not surprised about Budenholzer just because I've said for years I think he's been holding them back. He did win a championship, but that was more the players to me than him. So we'll see how that situation plays out, who their new coach is going to be, where Budenholzer ends up. But just a tough situation. But you've always got to coach your best. You've always got to use the best strategy. You've always got to do the things that make sense for you as a head coach because it's much easier to get rid of a head coach than it is to get rid of players. And that's kind of what happened here. All right, either one of you guys want to rock with it, it's on y'all.
First of all, when he had that, like I wouldn't say all-star team, but you had a team full of all-stars. If you just look back at his history, you had 5 Hawks that made the all-star game, which was Al Horford, Millsap, Jeff Teague, and a couple more others. You made it to the East. Horford, yep, you made Kyle Korver even made the all-star team, I believe, during that year. You ran into a buzzsaw in Cleveland, who was by far the better team. They wiped them off the floor in 4 games, got out coached on that one when it mattered the most. And Drew Holiday in Milwaukee, they were able to get by beating the Atlanta Hawks in 6 games without Giannis. So the players got the job done, and it turned in to Giannis having all the world, NBA Finals series. In that series, the last 3 games in the series to put the series away. But when you lose to an 8-seeded Miami Heat that's been struggling all year long, you deserve to get fired. And Eric Spoelstra is one of the best coaches in this league of adjusting when it matters the most. And I immediately said the Miami Heat will be a trouble once they enter in the playoffs. I know they had a struggling season. They was inconsistent the whole season when Jimmy Butler basically called out the team and said he's tired of losing games. And they lost the game to the Washington Wizards to end the season. That's the reason why they were in the play-in, even in the play-in tournament. But they get dominated by the Atlanta Hawks. They come back and beat the Bulls. But now they enter in the playoffs when you had way more rest. You had a chance to prepare the team for the Miami Heat. But then again, you lose a game 1. You can say Giannis was out in that game 1, but you were getting dominated even when he was gone up out of the game. Before he even left, he was getting dominated. Game 2, you did what you were supposed to do. But game 3 and 4, Jimmy Butler, you just ran into a buzzsaw of Jimmy Butler. So again, this guy has failed repeatedly over and over. He had solid teams. So again, it's just him benefiting from Giannis, but basically he's been getting out coached everywhere he's basically gone. The 2 teams he coached for, he got out coached, and just the teams just basically got outplayed. So he would definitely get another head coaching job. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets the head coaching job in Toronto. I wouldn't be surprised. He's definitely going to get a head coaching job. But Mike Budenholzer, he may be one of the most underrated coaches, overrated coaches in the National Basketball League.
And Stephen, your thoughts as well.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, and you guys covered a lot of it, right? He's not a bad coach. He's a very good coach, and I think for a young team out there that is looking to develop some of their pieces, he'll be a good option for them. But if you have a championship contender, if you have a roster that is ready to compete right now, he's not a guy who's going to get you over the hump, right? They had all the pieces fall in place for them 2 years ago. Everything went just right. They had, Giannis actually healthy for the finals. They had every single piece fall in place for them. And that ended up helping them to secure that title. And I think that actually kept his job because I'm pretty sure that had they actually lost, and if I remember correctly, I think Trae Young got actually hurt and was not able to play or wasn't 100% in the last game of that series that year in the Eastern Conference Finals. So, that was kind of a bit of a luck on your side because you didn't have Giannis out there. So if Trae Young had been healthy, you'd probably lose that game and he probably gets fired then. So honestly, I think he kept the job a couple years longer than he was really supposed to because of the fact they won a title, even though we've said on this show for a couple years now that it didn't really have a whole lot to do with him. So I'm not surprised that he got fired. Uh, Again, not a bad coach by any stretch of the imagination, but he's not a championship coach. You put him up against any other head coach that is still coaching in right now, besides maybe Darvin Ham, because we don't really know what he's going to do yet. He's still, he's in his first year. But you put him up against any other coach, and you would 100% know that he's going to get out coached by the other coach. So
I mean, I want to say one more thing, and people don't realize what underrated and or overrated means. Doesn't mean he's actually a bad coach. I mean, he's a very good coach, if you want to call it. I put him in the same category as Doc Rivers. Very, very good coaches, but not great or elite coaches.
yeah.
Like Doc Rivers is an overrated head coach and blew multiple 3-1 leads. Now, the Orlando Magic team that he coached with Tracy McGrady when he lost a 3-1 lead to the Detroit Pistons. The Detroit Pistons, they were a very good defensive team, and all Orlando had was Tracy McGrady on that squad. It was really nobody else that were really good on the team. Grant Hill, was out most of his career in Orlando because he had a gruesome foot injury that he shouldn't even been playing on. But other than that, you lost a 3-1 lead to my beloved Houston Rockets where the wheels fell off in that game 6 when you gave up game 5. You actually gave up the game 5 and you lost in 6. End up getting blown out in the 7th game. Then the one thing that saved his legacy was that Boston team. And he didn't even get credit for that. The players gave Tom Thibodeau all the credit because he's a defensive guru and a defensive specimen. So those two guys are overrated, but that doesn't mean they're not good coaches. They're very good coaches, but not great or an elite head coaches.
And just for the record, I did not think you were like completely trashing him when you said that. So,
well, I know you weren't, but hey,
yeah.
It's always good just for those people who are watching who may not, understand. Kind of break it down for them a little bit. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to that point in the show where we are going to be ending. We appreciate those who had an opportunity to tune in. It's a busy time of the year. We got NBA finals, playoffs and everything popping, baseball's going on. So we get it. But make sure that when you do see the replay, you like the show, you subscribe to the show, and you tell 2 of your friends and 4 of your enemies to check us out. Because just because they don't like you doesn't mean they won't like us. And with that being said, we're going to holler at you next week. Be prepared. And some of these things should be winding down, so these comments should be popping. All right? And we're going to see y'all next week.